Hi, Russell Delapini here, and I wanted to answer a question that I got from one of my readers today. And the question was about how to determine the proper pricing or the value of a property if you're not going to do comps for houses that have sold in the area. How do you figure out the actual price? How do you determine that? And so I'm going to dive into the answer to that question and more. Well, hey guys, here is a quick question that I want to go over from one of the good folks that reads my content. And so I wanted to answer that for that person, but also for everybody else, as I'm sure it would probably help everybody else as well. So the question is, how do you get accurate comps on a house you don't see to determine the value? And so what this is referring to is, for those of you who follow my content on doing virtual wholesaling using creative seller financing, lease options, no money down, zero down. That's what this question is in reference to, because the traditional way that you're going to do a wholesale deal, or really any kind of a real estate deal, usually is where you go physically inspect the property. When I was a realtor years ago, I would hire gentleman by the name of Carmine. He was awesome. He would inspect my houses, and I was really grateful that he did, because there was a couple of times we found some stuff that was really dangerous, like broken heaters where, carbon monoxide, I think it's called, was coming out of it. And so, obviously that's very, very dangerous for people that buy the house. So as a realtor, I would physically inspect the houses. I don't do that anymore, and I haven't in 10 years. When I do the types of deals that I do either myself or with my mentor students or with folks that are my clients, where I run marketing campaigns for them. So in either of those cases, I don't do any physical inspections of properties because I don't have to. And the inspection that they're talking about here is the inspection to determine the value of the property. So physically look at the actual property, and also look at the comparables, comps, properties that have sold in the last month or 3 months or 6 months, to determine a value. Sometimes certain properties, depending on where they're located or what they come with, if there's like a workshop or whatever, are harder to get or derive a price, a value from. And so the reason I don't have to do that, well, let me answer this question. How do you get accurate comps on a house you don't see to determine the value? So the short answer is I don't. The long answer is I let the market tell me what the right price is, right? So I actually let the market speak based upon the price that the seller wants. So to get the deal under contract in the first place, I actually do allow the seller to pick his or her price, but explain that if it's overpriced, the house won't sell, right? So if it's overpriced, we're all going to waste our time. And so I let them know that. Now, there's other stuff that I do when a seller does want to overprice their house, and which seller doesn't want to overprice their house, right? There are some sellers actually that do know what values are currently in their marketplace, and they do price accordingly. But there's some that, because of an emotional reason, little Johnny grew up here, little Tabitha had her first birthday here, whatever. Because of emotional reasons, they want to overprice the property. In their mind, they're pricing it right, but as far as the market's concerned, they've overpriced it. So I let them know on our initial call, if they overprice it, I'm not going to be able to sell their deal. If they price it right, we're going to sell the deal. I stress that the rental price needs to be at market price or below, but never above, right? So the real price, when doing creative seller financing, specifically rent to own, doing a lease option, is the critical price is the rental price, right? That's the one we can't really screw up on. And again, I let the market dictate. So yeah, there's different websites that you can use like Zillow for their Zestimates, but that's not always the most accurate. There's Zilpy.com, there's Rentometer.com that a lot of people are familiar with, but even there, at the end of the day, it's always price that either sells or does not sell a home, and it is always the market that will tell you if you're priced correctly. I was just talking to my dad. It's kind of funny. I was talking to my dad today on the phone this morning. I usually take my son every day to the park, and we start our work day around 11 or 12 in the afternoon. So we get to spend the morning at the park. And I was on the phone with my dad who lives out of state, and I was letting him know. I was just kind of sharing how I usually share the same saying that he says. He used to always say, look, you got to raise it up a flagpole and see who salutes. And so the same thing is true when I talk to sellers. I tell them the same thing. I say, look, if the price is wrong, we're going to raise up the flagpole and nobody's going to salute. That's how we know. And so if everybody salutes, you've priced it correctly. Also, to get the deal under contract, the purchase price can be 10 to 20% above market. So since we're selling on terms, there will not usually be an appraisal. There could be, but there usually isn't. It's just very, very rare. Again, you can do an appraisal for today's selling price, but if we're selling in the next couple of years, today's price doesn't really matter. And within 7 to 14 days, I usually can tell beyond a shadow of a doubt if the seller has priced their house too high, too low, or perfectly, right? I don't need 6 months. I don't need a 3 or 6 month contract to figure out if we're priced right. Within 7 to 14 days, usually within 24 hours, I could probably figure it out. If I'm getting a lot of calls, we priced it well. We've done a good job. If I'm getting no calls in 7 to 14 days, it's overpriced. Granted, the higher or the price is, if you're dealing with homes 500,000, 700,000, 800,000, whatever, then obviously you're not going to get a ton of calls. We got 400 buyers for one of my mentor students one time, but the house was it was $50,000, like $48,000 actually, to be specific. So obviously it was a smaller deal in terms of purchase price, so you get a lot more people that can afford that. So if you need help getting leads, deals under contract, and selling them, I hope that you will consider getting some help from myself, from our team, and there'll be a link below that you can click, and you can discover how to get free seller leads, but that'll actually be applying to work with you in as little as 24 hours, and you can get that absolutely free. So click the link below. Be happy to share how that would work, how our program as far as marketing and helping wholesalers and realtors get leads for their business, primarily wholesale real estate investors. That's really the folks that we look for to work with, because we've got it down to a science. That's why we're able to make that kind of a claim, within 24 hours. And if you're a realtor that's struggling and you're open to creative seller financing, and you want to do it in a way that isn't going to get you in trouble with your broker, we can help you there as well, and I'll explain how that all works, coming from the perspective of a former real estate agent with Kellers Williams and Remax, and also from a wholesale real estate investor's perspective. All right, thanks so much for the question. Awesome question. If you got a question, of course, let me know, and if I can, I'll get a video like this done for you, and I'll upload it to my YouTube channel as well, where you can get the answer. And of course, if you're a part of my email list, which I definitely recommend you subscribing to, I'll also be sending these answers there for free. Thanks.